The ideas, procedures, and suggestions contained within this podcast are not intended as a substitute for consulting with a medical professional. All matters regarding your health and fitness require medical consultation and supervision. Welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast, a podcast for military members, veterans, and first responders focusing on fitness, health, nutrition, and biohacking. Our mission with this podcast is to introduce America's heroes to lifestyle habits and hacks that will help them live healthier, happier lives, and in turn, be fit enough to continue their support of their communities and country.
Welcome to another episode of the Warrior Wellness Podcast. I'm your podcast host, former Army Captain Stephanie Lincoln, and founder of Warrior Wellness Programs, formerly Fireteam Whiskey. So today I'm interviewing Wiley McGraw. He is a former star pitcher, competitive bull rider, and 3-tour combat veteran. He loves excitement, apparently. It was through those intense experiences that he discovered his crazy superpower of being able to expose blind spots, erupt and eradicate stress, and fully unleash the untapped potential of high achievers. He's the founder of Radical Performance Acceleration, and for well over a decade now, he's been behind the scenes doing life-altering work with powerful CEOs, entrepreneurs, leaders, and public figures, accelerating their performance both personally and professionally. His work is a proverbial Navy SEAL training equivalent to high performance and leadership development, pushing even the elite beyond their limits so they not only hit their peak, but sustain it. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Wiley McGraw. Well, Wiley McGraw, thank you so much for joining us on the Warrior Wellness Podcast. We're really honored to have you here. And just first question right off the bat, I did read your intro here, but I wanted you to kind of go into it. You seem to like excitement because being a star pitcher, competitive bull rider, and a 3-tour combat veteran, you like the adrenaline, apparently. So, since our audience is mainly military veterans, can you just give us a little summary of your military experience?
Yeah, I think I love that you brought that up. I never thought I would be chasing adrenaline, and more along the lines of just these opportunities to better myself kept showing up. And I think that's where I found myself in those worlds. But the military specifically was that next level challenge. And I think many veterans can, maybe relate to that, where it's like, I want something more. I want to experience more excitement, more energy, more camaraderie, a new adventure, et cetera, whatever we want to label it. And for me, it was joining the Army. The biggest thing was my military. I have a big military family, legacy military family. Every man in my family has served in the military, in the Army, and the Navy since World War II. Both my grandparents were D-Day vets, uncles in Vietnam, MACV-SOG. I had, my father was a corpsman. Both my brothers served. My middle brother was an Army Ranger with 75th Ranger Regiment. Youngest brother was a corpsman, Fleet Marine Force guy. So for me, it was like, I want to jump out of airplanes and go to Ranger School and do some really cool, fun stuff in the Army. And I found myself enlisting at 17 years old while I was in high school. So get some experience under my belt as an active reservist. I found a duty station at Camp Pendleton, California, because I'm from Orange County, and I allowed myself to go to drill once a month while I was a senior in high school to gain some military bearing and some military experience, with the goal of transferring from that reserve component to the active duty component and being an infantryman. And that was really my ultimate goal was. From there, I had no idea where it was going to take me. All I knew is I needed to get to that place first. So when I graduated, I'd already been in the delayed entry program and transferred to the infantry. I went to boot camp for the second time after I graduated. I did the first time at Fort Sill between 97 and 98. And then 1998, I was back at Fort Benning, Georgia at the time, Fort Moore now. But I did infantry boot camp, graduated that, got orders to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, served with the Rakasans 187 Infantry Regiment out of the 101st Airborne Division. I did some really fun things there. I volunteered to transfer from the battalion orders that I was assigned to as an 11 Charlie to the company level with a different battalion to go to Kosovo in 2000. I wanted my first experience overseas. I was 20 years old and I did have quite the experience. And then, that was my first experience with an enemy combatant with, armed interaction with them, if you will, at 20 years old, and having to deal and manage the stress of that highly intense situation and learning what that really means for a soldier. And then I got home, re-enlisted after I got my EIB, Air Assault School graduation. Stayed in. September 11th happened. We were deployed 2 months later. Went to Afghanistan, combat operations over there. Came home, and then of course 6+ months later we were in Iraq, and I did the push to Iraq in 2003. And then I decided at that point to get out, because I'd had some bad experiences with leadership standing in my way of certain schools that I wanted. There was some some stuff going on there, which tends to happen, and I just didn't feel the pull to kind of deal with that kind of I would say politics. And I found myself exiting after 5 years and 2 months of active duty and 3 tours overseas.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool to a fellow Army veteran.
Right on, yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. So of course, a lot of us veterans end up in careers, in some sort of helping, career or achievement or leadership roles, right? So you did the same. And so you are now doing your thing with helping people reach their peak, their equivalent to high performance. You call it the Navy SEAL training to get to of leadership development. So I want you to just talk about what you offer and kind of how you ended up in that realm, and we can go from there.
Sure. What's interesting is everything that I have now on the website, the words that you see there, especially the Navy SEAL training equivalent to high performance and leadership, comes from the clientele that I worked with. To be blunt and candid, marketing is definitely not a thing that I, got myself into to figure out how I was going to do the work that I was called to do. It really just became just an experience to learn how to be an entrepreneur, learn how to be a business owner by jumping into the fire. And I think as veterans, that's the best thing for us, is when we are put in a position where we have no idea how to do what we're going to do, and we learn while we're in the midst of that, those intense situations, the moments we have the interactions with people, talking about what it is we offer, getting the rejections, going through the growth and the pain of becoming a business owner was really rewarding, rather than trying to figure out how to do all the nuts and bolts first and then trying to put something into those nice, finely tuned boxes, if you will. So for me, I had no idea. The truth is, when I got out of the military, I wanted to be a firefighter. So I wanted to go join another team. It was like, I want to be part of a team that serves my community and continue down that legacy of serving others. And I felt called to saving people that way. And it was interesting as I pursued post-military healing, finding resources in the natural products industry, health and wellness, psychology, learning about how to face and battle personal demons, how to deal with the transition from military, being in combat, back into the civilian world, going from a place where we're all, in it with each other to care about the person to the left and the right, going into a world where there are people are selfish and they're self-motivated. They don't have that kind of mindset. That's more stressful than I think than getting into a gunfight, to be honest, personally.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when I got it, how do I live at a place of peace? I was really just seeking that peace that I wanted. I didn't care what I had to do to get it, and I wanted to pursue that. And I realized through that process that my whole upbringing and everything I experienced in the military and how people interacted with me, there was something about me that I need to uncover. And I found through that path of, like, we call it self-mastery, but in reality was just facing my darkness and really kind of battling through my demons and healing and getting to a place of feeling optimized so that I can enjoy and experience a good life, and then turn around and help others that are dealing with the same thing. I found that I had an ability to truly erupt and pull out the demons that people are carrying around with them. And I started working with other combat veterans right off the bat. It just naturally started to happen. I met my business partner now 15 years ago, and she says, look, you know what? I can feel what you're really meant to do. I can sense the kind of guy you are. You're meant to fight fires this way. You're meant to help really battle and help men heal specifically. And at the time, I was getting my associate's degree in fire technology and get ready to go to the academy. And we had just opened up a veterans resource center at the college to help vets that were coming home from the OEF, OIF tours to get their benefits. And some veterans started talking to me, and they said, hey, you be willing to coach me and help me out? And I said, sure. And then it just kind of birthed from there. And we just built the business around the radical changes that were happening in these guys' lives. And they were going to the VA and talking to the VA people they were working with and going, hey, I don't want my medication anymore. I'm sleeping better at night. And they're asking, what are you doing? Or like, I'm working with another vet who's figured out the solution to help us deal with the traumas and stresses we're living with. And he's really effective. And it just became a word of mouth thing where people were like, hey, this guy does radical performance, kind of stuff, we're like, oh, that's kind of an interesting way to to label it. And the veterans that I worked with, special ops guys, SWIC guys, I worked with a JSOC dude who introduced me to a friend of his who was a pro ball player. And it just basically became a word of mouth thing from there. And we just built the business around that called Radical Performance Acceleration, and giving a place where people can truly have an experience rather than a program, and having me get into the trenches with them like a battle buddy, where I basically consume their life as mine and I fight whatever it is they're going through, the dynamics that they're unaware of that are affecting their personal and professional performance, and attacking it from all fronts with resources that I've collected over the years, holistically, and optimizing who they are rather than what it is they're looking to do. And I've found that that's the best approach when it comes to human beings, because we're very dynamic, we're very complex, we're not neatly put into these boxes. And I find that the self-help field basically sells limitation and keeps a lot of people stuck trying to figure out what's next. And I discovered that myself going through that whole process. So that's essentially what I've been doing for the last 14 years, is really just an experience-based, get into your life, go after everything that you're dealing with, battle it with you head on, fight those demons, resolve it personally. And of course, you make more money, have better opportunities, better relationships, better health, etc. But the byproducts are not the focus. It's the person specifically.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's such a good point. I just want to emphasize there is, most of the time when we're struggling or we're trying to solve a problem within ourselves, we have blinders on. And,
Sure.
you know, we only have one perspective, right? There's no way to have another perspective because it's just our perspective. So what could be incredibly helpful is hiring somebody like you know, like a coach, or, you know, this is why therapy works for a lot of people, is just getting somebody to kind of take that 30,000 foot view of your problem and your life in general, and giving you some of those observations, especially somebody with expertise in the areas that you have, that you can accelerate, like you use that word accelerate a lot.
Accelerate.
Yeah. So you don't have to struggle so much, right? So it
Right.
really can be just a slog and a struggle. And sure, maybe you can eventually figure it out, but God, wouldn't you want to get there a lot quicker? And, you know, and maintain it, you know, which is one of the major complaints of people who are making change is, okay, well, I can do it for a little while, right? Yeah, but I can't keep it up for some reason. And you can help people with that.
Well, that's the part about why the way I work is uniquely different, if you will, because I'm willing to individually take on the life of the person I'm supporting. So I go through the pains and the struggles and the wins and all aspects of that. I mean, there's no stone in their life that's left unturned. I will work with their wives, their children, their business partners. There's the dynamics of people's lives are where the blind spots reside. It's not in the surface level strategies or implementation or problem solving that we are, especially veterans, we're good at problem solving. That's great and all, but the dynamics themselves have a big impact, and they influence our decision making, our focus, our ability to manage and utilize stress as an asset rather than let it utilize us and hurt us or take us down. So can you imagine having a coach? It doesn't even matter if it's me or not. Really, at the end of the day, it's like having a coach who goes, you know what, my focus and my life is going to be consumed by your life. I'm going to be in the space with you as life happens to you, rather than trying to set us up where once a week we have a phone call, and you might on a Monday go through a very serious situation that 5 days later it kind of dissipates. You figure out how to like deal with the situation yourself, and then you bring it to your coach. Now you're filtering by a certain percentage to that coach and not really giving them the full, you know, the whole full view of what had happened. And that coach is only going to be able to problem solve with you from their experience of an outside in viewpoint. They're only going to be able to go, okay, I hear what you're saying, and now I'm going to give you what it is that I've learned and studied based on that information, and I'm going to try to apply tactics and skills that I understand only from this limited perspective, rather than having someone goes, I'm going to come live with you for a week. I'm going to travel with you as stuff is happening. When I see things erupt, I'm right there. And now we're going to go through it together as it's happening, because I think the moment when you're dealing with real intense firefights, if you will, in your life, there's nothing more powerful than having someone who leans in to that situation in that moment with you and holding you in that moment so that you can experience the real resolution of that problem or that situation, rather than avoiding it or stuffing it down, which then further just causes more chaos and more problems later. So that, I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of that approach. I do that too with my therapy clients is I'm not here to help you avoid, right? You're doing a whole lot
Yeah.
of confrontation. You're gonna sit in
Thank you.
that and it's gonna be ugly and it's gonna feel horrible, but we're
Yep.
gonna get through this and you're gonna learn
Yep.
that you can do this and you
I think
can.
confrontation is a wildly
Mhm.
misused and sometimes misunderstood technique or just experience. I think people are, especially the hardest of men and women, are afraid of confrontation. They hear confrontation, they think it means fight, rather than realizing confronting something head on is the quickest way to resolution. Avoiding it actually exudes more energy out of us than it would if we were just to take that moment and go, you know what, as much as I hate this and don't want to do this, this is the right path for me right now. And I love that you said that. You're like, I'm gonna make you face it. The only way we get through our pain is if we're willing to embrace it. It's the equivalent to suck it up, but in a more embrace the suck mindset. Rather than trying to swallow it, embrace the suck, deal with it. It's going to happen. If you were in the military and you hear this, it's like, dude, that we had to embrace the suck when we were in the military. Apply that principle to everything you have going on in your life, and we'll be able to, get to the objective and complete the mission and be the ones that survive through it.
Yeah. And so why do you say high achievement is not enough? What does that mean?
That's a great question. Consider, I would say, in my experience of working with many leaders over the last 14 years, we have built our society on the idea that achieving great things like the notoriety, the business bank accounts, status, the material possessions are a direct reflection of our value and who we are, rather than realizing what our personal performance does for us, meaning our performance is unique to who we are at any given moment in our life, and it has everything to do with our relationship to ourselves. That's how we end up showing up and performing in anything that we do. It's easy to achieve. You can check boxes and complete tasks and get things done. That does not mean you as a human being are an optimized version of yourself. That does not mean your performance is at its peak or it could, or anywhere near where you think it might be. I've worked with the public figures who have the 9-figure bank accounts and they have the nice cars and they travel, etc., but their lives are in shambles. You pull the curtain back from these people you follow and you watch on TV, and it's amazing how broken things really are. And they're like, but I've achieved so much. Yeah, but you have failed to actually live a really good, healthy, manageable, balanced, sustainable life. Your relationships are suffering. Your wife doesn't like you. Your children don't respect you. Your dog doesn't want to hang out with you. I mean, you are literally, your health is deteriorating. You're on the verge of suicide, some of these guys. And it's like, why? You have all these achievements, but this is not together over here. And they don't understand that achieving something has nothing to do with how you perform in life. And if you can focus on optimizing your personal performance and realizing your personal and professional performance are not mutually exclusive, you realize you can't leave your problems at the door when you walk through the corporate office. They come with you, regardless if you try to avoid them mentally. If you get willing to get real with yourself and actually attack that personally, the byproducts are your ability to achieve things that really matter for you and your ability to sustain that for a longer period of time at a higher level. And I think we're doing it backwards. We're too focused on getting things done, checking boxes, achieving great things based on the ideals of society, what we say is achievement, rather than focusing on how well am I living my life? How optimized am I as a person? Are my relationships thriving? Is my situation in a manageable place? And then parlaying that into the performance that we bring to our work or our jobs or our businesses, and realizing there's so much more we can do and so much less that we need to actually worry about when we're in that state.
Fireteam Whiskey is now found on Burn Along. We're so excited to be able to provide all of our fitness and wellness content right on this platform with thousands of other licensed and credentialed providers who are specialized in fitness, health, wellness, and even financial literacy. So if you've ever wanted to join the Fireteam Whiskey programs, now is your chance to not only get all of our amazing content, but also get access to hundreds of thousands of videos that will help you be well. Fireteam Whiskey is one of the exclusive providers on the Burn Along app. And all you have to do to go to join us is go to fireteamwhiskey.com, click on the link at the top of the page, and use that special coupon code we have for you to get Burn Along for as low as $9 a month. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, I see that a lot too, and therapy clients. That's just
I
like,
can imagine.
you know,
I can
on
imagine.
paper,
Yeah.
everything looks good, right? But it's behind the scenes. You pull that curtain back, and it is just,
Oof.
oh, it's a wreck. Yeah, and it's like, wow, and it's so easy to, in this day and age where everything's just front facing and
Excuse
you
me.
can.
Mhm.
You can, have the image, whatever image you want, but that doesn't mean that you're not, literally, and figuratively dying inside.
Right.
So,
And most people, believe it or not, most people that are at some level, at the level of the top people we see more prominently, they are unfortunately suffering, and they're suffering in silence. And but they've built such an empire on the stress and the chaos that they are used to, that they have justified that as a good fuel for what they're doing. And then as people, what we all do is we're all inherently flawed, so that nobody's perfect. So we go, well, look at the cool things they've built for society. Look at the great things they've done for humanity. And it's like, okay, so you're willing to override the dysfunction for the cool things they've achieved. And I'm not willing to do that. I think we would have a better society and a more functioning, more balanced, more meaningful, interaction with others in our communities if we had our leaders and those have influence and power. We're living that kind of life where, like you said, with your therapy clients, my clients, when we're willing to rip back the curtain and actually blend those two together and put them in a place where their professional life matches their personal life. They have that equilibrium there. And I think that's what, to me, it's unacceptable that it's almost like we excuse the dysfunction. We're like, well, and then most people will say, well, you're just jealous of that person because they have more money, or they've achieved so much and you wish you had that too. So rather than realizing we should hold everybody, that especially those that have that kind of influence, at a higher standard. We do it in the military. when you become a leader, you're an Army officer, you totally understand how that goes. It's like you should have the standard, not speak it, but embody your philosophy as a leader. Live what it is you're preaching out in public. And most people at that level do not live what they're preaching. So they hide what's behind the curtain. And anybody that tries to get close, they shut it down. I'm just saying, like, those that can hear this and go, you know what, I really want to see a real challenge for myself, or willing to surrender that need for control. And when they meet someone like you, or they meet someone like me, or anybody like us, and they go, I don't like the way this feels, but I understand that it's here for a reason, and I'm willing to embrace the suck of that, pull the curtain back and rip it open, because the goods are on the other side. You just got to be willing. It's like we go to boot camp, we go to trainings, we don't worry about the end. We're in the process. We enjoy the process. We learn in the process. We're in the day in and day out, sun up to sundown. And we succeed and come out at the other end and go, wow, I graduated that school. Can't believe I did that. Like, oh, why not apply that to life?
And and so I think, I'm not sure if this goes along with what we were talking about a little earlier about confronting and sitting in, but you talk about a lot about how you kind of have a different approach to stress and a different approach to fear. So, and this is what you teach your clients. So can you kind of give us a little, of course, you're not giving away the whole,
Sure. I can't.
philosophy, right? You got to pay for
Yeah, I
that,
can't.
but
Yeah.
just like a little example maybe of what that philosophy is and how this is different in your approach.
I look at, yeah, that's great. And I don't mind sharing as much as I need to, because at the end of the day, the experience that people have is completely different from me just talking about it. It really is. It's intimate, it's dynamic, it's intense, it's individualized. So each person is going to have their own unique experience. That's why it's not a cookie cutter. I can't tell people this is what's going to happen when you work with me, X, Y, Z, B, A, C, B. But the reality is, we allow stress to consume us. We allow stress itself to become a detriment to our ability to perform when the time comes for us or calls for us to perform. What I've found in confrontation is when I'm battling my clients, wherever they're at in that life, the moment we're going through those intense moments, as every day happens, because I'm technically with my clients 24/7 for upwards of a year. So they get access to me as much as they need to. when they are experiencing that stress, that confrontation, I hold them in it. I allow them to sit longer in it so they can actually start to learn how to appreciate what it feels like, what it really looks like, why it's stress to them. I help them identify whether or not it's actually a stress they should be worried about, or if it's just a normal part of change or growth that's happening to them. And then we then utilize that feeling, that energy, that mindset in the moment, and we transfer that into whatever actions they have to take in that day. So if I have a client, like a public figure who's got a seminar he's got to go run, and we're dealing with a massive roadblock before he goes and sells coaching to 1,000 people in an audience, and we go through a massive push through a very serious terror he absolutely refuses his entire life to look at, I make sure that we take that experience, that resolution that comes from it, so that he can turn around and stand confidently knowing that same feeling he might experience on stage is not what he thinks it is. And it changes his whole demeanor, his whole approach to how he interacts with people in front of him. So it's about you realizing the stresses we experience in growth and transformation are good for us. And we can take that energy of that stress and we can turn it into an asset if we're willing to sit a little longer with it than versus just avoiding the ick that we feel when we first experience it. Can you remind me the second part of that question? Because I want to make sure I'm not missing that point. Stress and then
fear as well. Yeah.
I think, well, number one, so as a man of faith myself, I look at fear. I think fear comes from our inability to get outside of ourselves. I think we rely too heavily on the self to figure things out rather than on something more powerful than us. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who has got the answers, like a therapist or a coach, or faith that you are involved in. You got to realize that it's this whole dependency on the self. We compartmentalize who we are and we think we've got it all figured out and we're enough to solve these problems. And when we're faced with challenges we have no idea how to handle, fear is the result. Fear itself, it can be an asset as well, especially when you learn how to harness fear. Combat's one of the best environments for you to really learn about fear. It's how do we yield to the fear rather than become consumed by it or believe that we can somehow get rid of it permanently. It's all about sitting with what fear is trying to teach you, why it's teaching you what you're experiencing, and what is the moment you're going through that is bringing that fear to you. So I remember my very first experience in a gunfight situation where one of the guys that were on this plateau place in the Afghanistan mountains, and I remember on a combat operation, it was January 2002, and we got attacked. We got a little bit of a skirmish going on with the Taliban. And I remember rounds started going off and I heard some of these guys that were like panicking a little bit. They're like, I don't know, I can't see anything. My nods aren't working. It was nighttime. And I remember hearing another guy say, look, he goes, take a breath. He goes, whatever you're feeling right now, he goes, it's not real. He goes, that is an internal stimulation of you feeling like you have no control over the situation, but you do. Remember, you're trained to do this. This is what we're here for. I'm literally hearing this. As I'm setting up my 60 millimeter mortar gun, getting ready to put rounds down range, I can hear this kind of over off to the side, these 11 Bravos that were near us doing that. And I just thought about it. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing how it's easy to let the situation or challenge we're facing stimulate worry, fear, and doubt, rather than us understanding it's going to be a part of that challenge. How do I then embrace it? How do I yield to the unknowns so that fear doesn't become my enemy, but it becomes my ally? And then I can turn around and I can channel that power into my focus, into my direction, into my problem solving, etc. So which is why when I got into that first situation, putting rounds down range, it's almost like you hear all the veterans, SEALs, etc. talk about where you just hone in on your training. It just becomes second nature to you. There's no panic, worry, or doubt. The fear might be lingering in the background, but at the end of the day, I typically like to pray. I like to sit there in that quick moment, pray about it, realize it's happening for a reason, embrace it, and then turn around and then still engage and realize that there's nothing bad happening here. And I think we get caught up in that moment where we feel something uncomfortable, we're out of our control, we think something bad's happening, and then we try to avoid it, or we try to circumvent it or go around it, or we try to push it off onto someone else to figure it out for us. And I think that's the wrong way to do it too. So it's the best way I can describe those two pieces for you.
Yeah. And is that why you push your clients out of airplanes?
Yes. I had to do that a few times because there are there are certain things that these people, these egos, are absolutely refusing to like do, and it's like I will not do that. Well, I'm telling you, you think that is your discernment, but the reality is that is your fear. And when I recognize fear is consuming them in that moment, I'm really seeing what's actually hindering their abilities. I will do radical things, and I will make sure we break through whatever that is. And sometimes if I've got to throw you out of an airplane so that you can experience total surrender and absolute vulnerability, when you get to the ground and we start having a conversation, and then I make you go then do the thing I wanted you to do, you realize, man, I'm happy to do that. There's nothing, I totally understand why I was afraid. You put them in the environments outside of their control that really stretch them and open them up. You'll see who they really are and what they're made of, and you realize they're conditioned. There's something going on in there. Nobody's ever really been able to poke at it. And I'm not afraid to poke at it. I don't care what their personality is, how much money they've got, how popular they are. I don't care. I'm willing to push, poke, prod, and kick you wherever you need to get you to where you want to go. And if you don't like that, that's okay. You can go hire Tony Robbins or somebody else that makes you feel good. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm not here to make you like me. I'm here to make you realize you can trust me. I love you and care for you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get you where you want to go. And then when I'm done, I'm getting the hell out of your way, and you and I are no longer going to have to do anything together.
Yeah. And I just love that so much, because it really is an indication. The thing that you fear the most is like a signal to you. That's the thing you need to confront. I mean, that ultimately, and if you can do that and prove to yourself, yeah, I got this, I no longer need to fear this, that's so empowering and just a launching point of just optimal functioning, because that's been holding you back.
I just think those are those divine innate gifts that we've all been given, to be able to realize we have the ability to embrace whatever comes our way and realize if it scares us, that is the moment where real change is actually taking place. It's easy to buy a coaching program or do an online workshop or do a seminar that kind of is at your own pace and feels good. And I'm not saying those things don't create results. However, when you are someone who seeks real change in your life, and we're always going to keep changing and growing, we're always going to be needing something that's going to keep us at the top of our game, no matter what it is. Those moments are the most powerful for you. That's why the client that I told you called it the proverbial Navy SEAL training. He's a guy who'd worked with SEALs. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, this is the most intense thing I've ever done, but it feels like I'm on the beaches of Coronado in the swim, and you're just constantly relentlessly attacking me everywhere I go. But I realize there's a reason why we met. There's a reason why you're doing it. There's a whole point to this. And I'm willing to embrace it and get to the place where I say I want to go. I'm willing to understand that when that fear shows up, that's the very thing we need to get after. If I avoid that, where is it going to go? That doesn't go anywhere. If you stuff it down, what do? You open up more doorways for other stresses to come in, other negative experiences to happen, and then you compound yourself and you go, why am I consistently experiencing more and more negative problems, no matter how much I do or get done, no matter where I go? It's because maybe that one thing you've been avoiding for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, that one powerful thing that you were scared of, no matter how tough you really are, that thing has festered and it's metastasized and it's become something more cancerous to you. And you have done nothing to cut it out because you're afraid of what it means to actually, and humans are afraid. We're afraid of admitting and exposing ourselves and being vulnerable and being real and going, I can't do it myself. I need to face it. We don't want people to see that. We're ashamed and we hide. And then we walk around with our chest puffed out like we've got it figured out. And it's like, dude, I can see right through it. You're not, you need something more. So I think getting your audience, veterans, et cetera, we all know this. Fear, stress, it's all part of challenge and growth and stretching our capacity to become more. That's why we joined the military. That's why we become business owners, is because we want more than where we're at. If we didn't want that, we could have joined the Boy Scouts and done something else, or Girl Scouts, or gone, so something a little bit easier, but we didn't. We chose the hard path, and we did that because it was hard to do, and we knew we would be better for it. Yeah.
Well, I think the timing for this episode is perfect because we are in January. If you're listening to this, this recording is in January, and we just actually passed national, worldwide, I guess, but National Quit Day. So I guess all the data has been collected, and everybody makes New Year's resolutions. It's this big push. I'm going to improve. And National Quit Day, the average quit day is the 19th of January. So today is the 24th. So we just passed it, right? So most people have just given up at this point. Like a majority of people have just given up on their New Year's resolution. So I think you're the perfect person to have, kind of address that maybe with a couple of tips to those people who are out there listening right now, who were in that big group of people. Most people have at this point just given up. So you have any words of advice?
I want to empathize with them because I understand those feelings you have when you have to do something you don't want to do. When you make a commitment to something and it starts to feel overwhelming, it's so much easier for us to go, you know what, I'll get to that later. It doesn't feel right now. We start to create these justifications in our own minds. No matter how much we've done well, we've done good for ourselves over the years. It's the same. I'll give these pieces of advice. For me, as I get up at 4 to 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, you know what, today I need my body to rest because I like to train. I like to go to the gym. I like to throw a rock on my back still. I like to do all those little fun things that we did. But there are days I wake up and the alarm goes off and I go, man, I really don't want to get out of bed right now. And I sit there and then I have my own conversation where I go, if I don't get out of bed right now, what does that say about my integrity to myself, the commitments that I've made, the desires that I say that I want to have happen in my life? What will that mean as a leader for my family, with my wife and my, how will the people that depend on me, how would they see me if they knew I was procrastinating more than I'm sitting on this podcast with you and I'm talking about, you got to step towards the fear. And I'm going, yeah, but I don't do that myself at home. I succumb to the whims of comfort when I don't feel like it's worth the energy expenditure. I would tell people, like, sometimes it's as simple as having those moments of self-reflection, even when it feels awful and wrong. Even if you go, you know what, today I do need to rest and I need that extra couple hours of sleep, at least you will go through that process of realizing, okay, it's not that important today. I do have other things I got to take care of, but if I give my body this rest, at least I've had the conversation with myself. Have the discipline to self-reflect and to go, why did I make that choice? Why did I choose my New Year's resolution to finally get in the gym and lose the 5 pounds? Why did I choose this year to not deal with the drama of my family? Or whatever your New Year's resolution, your data is how serious was that commitment to you? Or did you just make it because it seemed cool at the moment or sounded good? Or the reality is it important? If it is truly important, and it's not an urgent matter, but it's an important matter, self-reflection is the most powerful tool we have to truly process through whether or not our actions really do matter for that specific thing or goal that we have set out in front of us. So for me, I want to be at 44 years old, I want to be in great shape. I want to make sure I take care of my body. I want to always be able to perform if I have to. So if I say I'm getting up at 4 to 4:30 to go train, and the days I wake up and I'm just feeling like really bad, my body's like, I'm sore today, I still sit there and go, you know what? I sit out of bed, I get some water, I go, is it good for me to self-care today and not push myself? Do I have to do it? If I absolutely do not have to do it, I might just rest, read a book, relax. If I don't, and I know I need to because there's something I'm clearly, maybe I'm just being weak in that moment for a second. My mind's like, you can just rest a little longer. Don't do it. I have that conversation, and then that does eventually give me the solution. You know what? No, I need to get up, and I just get out and I go after it. I think that's missing with people, is that introspective self-reflection that we need to really have that talk with ourselves and go, stop setting goals that you know you won't achieve or go after if they're not that important to you. Don't just do it to do it for do its sake. You have to be disciplined to be disciplined, and then you have to be willing to do it even if you don't want to do it. I went to the gym 2 days ago, sat on the bench for like 20 minutes. I barely did anything for a little bit. I was like, I don't want to be here, but I still put some effort into the fact that I made a promise to myself I was going to start my week off the right way every week. And those are the things that I tend to do. So I would tell people, you're making a commitment to something, at least have some introspection and go, you know what, let me reflect on why I made the commitment. And if it's not that important, then maybe I need to push it away and stop talking about it and get it off my table. But if it is, I have to be willing to do the things that I sometimes don't want to do to make sure that I achieve that because I said I was going to do it. And I think that will change people's mindset and approach to what they are experiencing in their life.
Awesome. That's great advice. Yeah. Thank you. So
you're welcome.
all the links to how to follow you on all the socials and how to check out your
That's
programs
a
are
that's a world, yeah.
are all there in the show notes. But I just wanted to see if you have any final parting words with our audience, and we will thank you very much for coming on the Warrior Wellness Podcast.
Absolutely. Well, here's what I'll say. If you have the majority of your audience are veterans, and you as well, thank you all for your service, truly, because what we're living through right now, and we have the lowest recruitment and retention numbers in 80 years, the debacle that we're experiencing, I feel really bad because I've actually been asked to consider going back into the military, believe it or not. So it's like, it's sad. So thank you all for your service, truly. Whatever you did, Godspeed. I appreciate you all. I'm glad to connect with other veterans as well. The website I have is put together is just philosophies and insights that I've put together and learned over the past decade plus of working with these, or 14 years working with these high level people. The work I do is not a program, so I don't offer like any systems or steps. However, there are videos, there are white papers that I've written to discuss what you and I have been talking about in more in depth. They can go there and happily download those. There's no charge for anything. If people want to have a conversation, hey, by all means, feel free. My contact information is there as well. I have a podcast of kind of like playing with here called Wise Words and Whiskey with Wiley McGraw, having cool conversations with some folks over some good whiskey, sipping, things like that. But the reality is I would just share with people is that we're all disciplined because we've all done it. If military, you can apply it in your life and it's not that really hard. It really does come down to how much do you want to face change and challenge and grow, or how much you okay with where you're at. And if you're okay with where you're at, by all means do that. But if you hear yourself going, I want more, but you're afraid to face what it takes to get to that next level, or embrace the discomforts of yourself and what you've got to face inside you, the demons that you might be plagued by, those two worlds have to meet. Otherwise, you're gonna forever feel like you're just stuck going, man, what's next? I don't know why I can get out of this hole. So that's the last piece I'd give to your audience.
Awesome. Thank you, Wiley. You've been a fantastic guest. I love everything about what you're doing out there, and definitely check out the show notes and check out Wiley, all the socials and his website. He has some really good stuff on there. So I appreciate you coming on the Warrior Wellness Podcast today.
I appreciate you having me today. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Warrior Wellness Podcast. I'm your podcast host, former Army Captain Stephanie Lincoln, the founder of Warrior Wellness Programs. Check us out at warriorwellnessprograms.com. I really would appreciate you just taking just a second to follow or subscribe wherever you saw this video or listened to this podcast. And even better, if you leave us a review. That'll help us reach others who really need this information. So your honest feedback about what we're offering on the Warrior Wellness Podcast will help us do that. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.